Welcome to the 700 Club. A strong defender of traditional marriage has given way to the militant demands of the LGBTQ lobby, which is so powerful. Who is it? Which company has given way? And what will the implications be? We'll tell you that story as we come up on the 700 Club today. Charlene Aaron has more on this explosive issue.
The backlash has been swift and far-reaching after Chick-fil-A announced plans to stop making donations to groups that oppose gay marriage. This after long-running opposition from the LGBTQ community. The chain says it will no longer give to the Fellowship of Christian Athletes and the Salvation Army, instead focusing on specific initiatives like hunger, homelessness, and education. Dan Celia, host of the Christian radio show Financial Issues, told CBN News that Chick-fil-A is abandoning its loyal supporters to appease a group that will never be satisfied.
I think Dan Caffey and others have grown weary of the battle, just fighting constantly. And I think that is a discouragement to so many people and their base.
On the Family Research Council's radio program, former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee said he doesn't understand the decision and fears it will have a wider impact on society.
It's such a disappointment, such a bewildering situation as to why Chick-fil-A, after being so successful, would decide that they're going to surrender to the bullies. And I think that the implications of this are far broader than Chick-fil-A, and that's what I really am concerned about.
But not everyone is criticizing the chain's decision. Alveda King, niece of slain civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr., says people shouldn't rush to judgment.
Chick-fil-A, of course, with Truett Cathy, he gave that to us, he and his wife, a very strong legacy. So we don't want to see the legacy fall apart or anything like that. But rather than fall apart and begin to pick people apart for decisions and choices that they're making, we just need to pray.
It's been a long battle since Chick-fil-A top executive Dan Caffey publicly expressed his views on biblical marriage 7 years ago. That unleashed a fury of protests across the country by supporters of gay marriage. Gay activists held what they called kiss-ins. That hostility continues today. Chick-fil-A released a statement saying it will consider giving to faith-based groups in the future. Meanwhile, the LGBTQ community isn't applauding the chain, saying it wants to see Chick-fil-A take action to protect LGBTQ workers. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Well, you know, Truett Cathy, who's the founder of Chick-fil-A, has been on this program a number of times when they were just starting out. And he said, what I want to do is to take a little slice of white meat chicken, a fillet of white meat, and put it in a bun. And that was Chick-fil-A. It was a fillet of chicken. That's how the name came. And it was a little tiny outfit in Georgia. And the next thing you know, it's grown into a gigantic corporation. I think his wealth was somewhere in the neighborhood of $4 billion when he passed on. And to see this reversal is very sad to me because it was is a great company and a great founder. And Dan Caffey is the one who made that expression, and I don't think he ought to back down from it. But the militants are so powerful in this country, and in the program that they brought. I mean, it's so easy for a few militants to boycott something and go around with a picket and make a lot of fuss. It doesn't take the majority. The majority of people enjoyed their food. Well, we'll see whether Popeye's chicken sandwich now moves into the lead. I have no idea. Well, in other news, he could be the most important witness in the public impeachment hearing, but no one is sure what he'll say. Who is he? John Jessup has more on that story.
That man, Pat Gordon Sondland, President Trump's ambassador to the European Union. His version of the president's dealings with Ukraine has differed from others, but he's also changed his story, and no one knows exactly what he'll say today. This after a long day of testimony Tuesday, including 2 witnesses called by Republicans. Abigail Robertson has more.
One of the more notable revelations Tuesday came when Republicans hinted multiple times during questioning of Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vidman that they believe he might be a whistleblower source.
I spoke to 2 individuals with regards to providing some sort of readout of the call.
Vindman testified one of them was George Kent, but when asked a question about the second person,
what agency was this individual from? If I could interject here, we don't want to use these proceedings. It's our time, I know, Mr. Chair, but we need to protect the whistleblower.
Democrat objections, leading Republicans to this question.
You have said, even though no one believes you, you have said you don't know who the whistleblower is. So how is this outing the whistleblower to find out who this individual is?
Both Vindman and Jennifer Williams, an aide to Vice President Mike Pence, acknowledged concerns while listening to the July 25th phone call.
Without hesitation, I knew that I had to report this to the White House counsel.
Vindman testified, however, he didn't view moving the call to a secure server as anything nefarious.
This is definitely not unprecedented.
Congressman John Radcliffe questioned Speaker Pelosi's claims this investigation is about bribery.
The word bribery appears in these 3,500 pages exactly one time. And ironically, it appears not in a description of President Trump's alleged conduct. It appears in a description of Vice President Biden's alleged conduct.
To which Chairman Schiff responded,
Your fact witnesses, it will be our job to decide whether the impeachable act of bribery has occurred.
In the afternoon, Republicans finally brought forth two witnesses of their own, Kurt Volker, a former U.S. envoy to Ukraine, and Tim Morrison, a former NSC official.
I was never involved in anything that I considered to be bribery at all.
But Volker made clear, while he felt investigating Burisma was appropriate, investigating Joe Biden was unacceptable.
The accusation that Vice President Biden acted inappropriately did not seem at all credible to me.
On Tuesday, President Trump claimed impeachment started before he became commander-in-chief.
What's going on is a disgrace, and it's an embarrassment to our nation.
There are still 5 witnesses set to testify publicly and possibly more to come, with the House impeachment inquiry likely wrapping up by Christmas. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Thanks, Abby. Pat, the impeachment saga continues.
I can't believe it. And, you know, ABC is making such a big deal of it. I just really, I don't think, you know, when you've got the head of the Senate saying without question the Senate will not vote to impeach the president. It's got to go from the House to the Senate, and they'll have to have a trial. And if they do, it will go into January, February. And so a number of the Democrats who are running for president in the Senate will not be able to attend, or they can't campaign in Iowa or New Hampshire and so forth. And it's going to be quite a block for them. But, ladies and gentlemen, it's an exercise in futility. There isn't anything that has come out in all these hearings that indicates that the president really has done anything that's impeachable. You know, there's conflicting testimony going back and forth. Well, this one said and that one said. And it's just a waste of time. And I don't know why the Democrats keep running this thing, because they think maybe they'll throw some mud on the president, so coming into the next election, he won't be able to win. But I think what they're doing is hurting themselves. If I'm reading it right, I believe that's the way it is. John?
He actually said his numbers are better than ever right now.
Yeah. Well, the base is rallying around, but they haven't brought anything out. I mean, those who don't like him are saying, look at that testimony, and it wasn't that, you know, exciting. No, it's not exciting. They're really very boring, those hearings, if you listen to them. And the networks are taking their prime time, their time all during the day.
Prime time news. I know I turned on the news last night. It was the impeachment hearings.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, well, anyhow, I don't run the network, so they'll have to make their own decisions. But they think it's a big deal. I don't. John?
Pat, to 2020, the Democrats running to replace President Trump hold their latest debate tonight in Atlanta. South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg is likely to face his toughest challenge yet, as he's gained momentum in recent polls, particularly in Iowa. That places him solidly among the frontrunners, Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie Sanders. Buttigieg has positioned himself as a moderate in contrast to the far-left policies of Warren and Sanders. Well, Israel struck dozens of Syrian and Iranian military targets in Syria overnight in response to Iranian rocket fire at the Golan Heights. Israel Defense Forces said it struck terror targets, including headquarters, weapons warehouses, and military bases. When Syria fired off its defense missiles, Israel destroyed a number of aerial defense batteries. The IDF released this map showing the targets it struck. Israel has been targeting Iranian forces in Syria. Experts say Iran intends to station 100,000 soldiers in Syria, plus air and naval bases, Pat, from which to strike Israel.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it seems to me that this is on the edge of war. I was over there when there was an invasion of Israel by the Hezbollah, the forces that were in Lebanon, and they have thousands of rockets that are much more sophisticated than what was there before, and they can hit almost any target in Israel. And the Syrian side of things is building up forces. The Iranians are loading up their guns on it. And I don't know how long the Israelis are going to be able to maintain any kind of stability with that kind of a threat on their border. And sooner or later, their survival is at stake, and they're going to really go to full-scale war. I don't know if they'll invade Syria or what they'll do, but something has got to be done. And it's just simply amazing that the UN says, well, we're going to guarantee peace, and let's have a ceasefire, and then they don't guarantee peace, and the other side gets to walk away about the time the Israelis are winning. But I do believe that the IDF is going to take serious steps in the not-too-distant future to stop this threat against the integrity of Israel. John?
Pat, 2 guards at the New York jail where Jeffrey Epstein died are facing criminal charges, accused of failing to perform inmate checks the night he died and falsifying records to appear that they had. The guards have pleaded not guilty. Prosecutors say they were browsing the internet and sleeping at their desk that night. Epstein had just been taken off suicide watch. He was accused of sex trafficking and had connections to many powerful people. The financier was found dead in his cell with a noose around his neck. A pathologist hired by his family says the evidence suggests his death was a homicide, not suicide. Federal investigators are looking into what happened. Human trafficking is a $150 billion a year industry, and more than 17,000 people in the United States are trafficked every year. Now law enforcement is using modern technology to fight the epidemic. It's a tool that may help clamp down on the growing problem that crisscrosses the globe. CBN National Security Correspondent Eric Phillips brings us the story.
Human trafficking is a $150 billion business with some 40 million victims worldwide. Now experts are harnessing the power of artificial intelligence to fight against it, and they're rolling out a new program here in the nation's capital. It's a big, evil business, with human trafficking victims described as modern-day slaves.
They don't get to make the most basic decisions about their lives. Someone else decides when they wake up, where they work, and who touches their bodies. And we find it, honestly, wherever we're looking for it.
Officials hope this new global platform you see here will help. It's called Traffic Analysis Hub, powered by artificial intelligence. The hub is designed to track instances of human trafficking wherever it may happen. One of the movers behind the platform is IBM's Corporate Social Responsibility Division.
We're using the AI to tell us information about what's been described in news articles or tweets or in case management reports or victim impact statements. So all of that contains nuggets of information. And when we process that into something that's consistent and available to our partners, that's where they get the benefit.
Those partners range from law enforcement to nonprofits to the financial community, all dedicated to fighting human trafficking. This new hub will gather information quickly and spread it far and wide, something experts say has been badly needed.
It's a major frustration for me. I'm an intelligence professional from law enforcement. My major frustration is there's lots of research work out there. They're very large documents, and they're very well done, but not many people have access to them. We need to come up with something that everybody who needs access to an understanding of the picture of trafficking can get it simply and easily.
And that's the goal of this new technology.
So from a financial institution perspective, they're interested in where have events occurred and when, so that they can cross-reference that inside their own organization to see are transactions happening that may be consistent, that might give an indication of a suspicious activity.
Traffickers are using technology. There's no reason why we shouldn't use technology as well as we work to stop them.
Experts say it takes an array of techniques to fight against this problem of human trafficking, and they believe this new AI-inspired technology will become a major tool in their arsenal. In Washington, Eric Phillips, CBN News.
And Pat, as you're well aware, there are more people in slavery today than at any point in history.
Something in the neighborhood of 1 million people a year, young people, young boys, young girls, trafficked. You can imagine the hideous life they have to lead. And it's horrible. I would put the strongest sanctions against those traffickers. I mean, if people had to use lethal force to take them out, I think it's appropriate. Because, you know, if they sell drugs, they have to replace the drugs. But if they can traffic some poor girl, they can use her over and over and over and over again until they wear her out, and then she catches some disease, and then they'll throw her aside, and then the next one comes. But think of the hopelessness that goes into that situation. And when the Bible tells us to rescue the perishing, that certainly applies to this. And so I think we ought to have all the forces of all the governments of the world working to stop this hideous, hideous trade. John?
Pat, a winter weather alert is on for the Northeast this weekend. A storm carrying rain will run into cold air from Canada, resulting in ice and snow across the Great Lakes and into Pennsylvania, New York, and New England. Meanwhile, two storms are coming together to form one huge system that will stretch from the plains into the southwest. As much as 30 inches of snow is expected in parts of Colorado, and heavy rains could bring flash flooding to parts of Arizona and California. More winter-like weather, Pat.
Fortunately, we live in a very benign area that's warmed by the Gulf Stream, and so come to Tidewater. It's the garden spot of the world. Wendy.
When we get a nor'easter, which we had this over the weekend, it's mainly just rain and dark skies and wind.
Your windows shake a little bit, but it's not too bad. So anyhow, but to pray for that, and whatever happens as the holidays approach, be very careful on the highways because there'll be many traffic accidents, and I just hate to see something like that. Thanksgiving should be a time of rejoicing, not a time of sorrow.